Welcome to Now in the 90s, where we look at the game releases of 30 years ago today. This week, an unlicensed game, a cinematic platformer, and Sonic the Hedgehog makes history. Hi, I'm your host Jared, and today is November 25th, 1992. When you have a breakout hit with a breakout star, the best way to capitalize on it is to make another one as fast as possible. Released November 24th, 1992, was Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Now, when you buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1, you'll get Sonic 2 absolutely free. Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains, embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too. This free Sonic 2 is a $54.99 value. You get two Sonics for the price of one. Sonic 2 fits easily into any tackle box. Made from a space-age polymer plastic for years of family fun. And pets love it too. Buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1 and get Sonic 2 free.
Act now. Wiener Dog sweaters sold separately.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 delivers more of the same fast-paced gameplay of the original. Sonic runs, destroys enemies, goes through loops, and collects life-sustaining rings. He's got some new tricks up his sleeve, such as being able to spin dash, revving himself up into a ball to instantly get some speed and attack. Also introduced, of course, is Sonic's new buddy, Miles Tails Prower. Tails follows Sonic wherever he goes, mimicking his moves, getting in some extra hits, and more often getting left far, far behind. Incredibly innovative for the time, a second controller can be plugged in and allows another player to control Tails, allowing for some two-player co-op and for the younger sibling playing as Tails to inevitably be left far, far behind. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is also the game in the series that establishes Super Sonic. Once Sonic has played enough bonus stages to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, he can transform into the ultra-fast, ultra-powerful, and invulnerable Super Sonic. Now, in the 90s, Sonic the Hedgehog was already a big deal. His first game was a massive success for Sega, paving the way to become their franchise mascot and system seller. Going into 1992, the decision was made to pack every new Sega Genesis console to include a copy of Sonic 1, further ensuring that every Sega owner knew exactly who Sonic was and to be excited for his next game. And people were excited. Magazine previews showcasing Sonic 2 started at the beginning of the year. People were already meeting Tails, learning about the two-player modes, and being teased with that blistering speed that Sonic is known for. Sega had also sent an early prototype build of the game to Nickelodeon television show Nick Arcade to showcase it being played early, albeit poorly. 1992 was also the year that Sega of America decided to go after Nintendo and hit them where it hurts. This was the year that Sega was determined to become the king of the console market, and all of their marketing plans were designed to insult Nintendo. The infamous blast processing commercials began in late 1992, and those featured the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? And what if you don't have blast processing?
The hype was real. People were ready for Sonic 2. Sega of America saw this as an opportunity to take it a step further. Posters asking, "Are you up to it?" Free t-shirts for pre-ordering, approximately $10 million spent on advertising alone. They already had one of the most anticipated video games of the holiday season. How could they make it even bigger? By hyping it on a global scale. They were going to do something that no video game had done before it: a simultaneous worldwide release. November 24th, 1992 was a Tuesday. Sega celebrated the launch with a worldwide event called Sonic Tuesday. Events were held all over the world to showcase the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, happening in Japan, New York, London, and France. Sega wanted to treat the release of Sonic 2 with the same aplomb as a major movie release. Press releases, photo ops, people in Sonic costumes, and Sega also wanted big-name celebrities there. But those were expensive. But they could afford teen heartthrobs. Dustin Diamond, Joey Lawrence, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and a whole lot of denim are just some of the few that were there to help promote the game and get kids excited. And it worked incredibly well. Gaming magazine review outlets also showered it with universal praise. GamePro magazine awarded it with a 4.5 out of 5 in every category. Electronic Gaming Monthly would go on to call it the best game for the Sega Genesis of 1992, and the Chicago Tribune newspaper deemed it runner-up for Game of the Year 1992. Nintendo's response to it all was conceding that Sega effectively stole Christmas from them. In the US alone, Sonic 2 sold 1 million copies in its first day. It broke sales records. Within a year, it became the best-selling 16-bit video game at that time. And to speak of Sonic's legacy to this day is almost redundant. The success of Sonic 2 skyrocketed him from beyond just a video game character, but to a pop culture icon. Starting the following year, there would be more Sonic games, multiple Sonic cartoon series, merchandise, going non-stop all the way to this day with more Sonic video games and feature film releases. Not bad for a video game that was made in less than 9 months. What fool would try to go up against such a behemoth game release? Well, that fool's name is Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade, also released this week for the NES in 1992. Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade stars the alien Linus, who returns to the planet Earth with plans on taking as much video evidence as he can back to his home planet of Linoleum. Gameplay is half platformer, half point-and-click adventure. You can control and move Linus around, but also use typical adventure commands such as look, talk, give, and use with all kinds of environmental objects. This slow-paced gameplay is right alongside action sections of Linus jumping around platforms, collecting items, and traveling around the world, giving something more for kids to do than just a lot of reading. Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade was developed by Codemasters and published by Camerica. Some of you may be scratching your head asking yourself, why have I never heard of this game before? And that's because it's unlicensed. Camerica had been publishing games for the NES without Nintendo's licensing. It's why their games have a special switch on the back of the cartridge that you're supposed to flip when the game doesn't work. This switch works around the NES lockout chip, as seen on some of their other unlicensed games like the 4-in-1 Quattro cartridges. In fact, that's where this game comes from. Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade is actually a sequel to the game Linus Spacehead that was a part of the Quattro Adventure collection. It's also one of the few games that was created for the Aladdin Deck Enhancer, an NES cartridge adapter meant to swap out other games easily and be cheaper. And I don't like it very much. It's hard to do a point-and-click game on the NES, and while this is a solid attempt at it, I don't think it's very good. But it's hard to be too critical of an unlicensed NES game. Something that's a little more beloved than that, released this week in 1992, was Out of This World for the SNES. Out of This World is a cinematic platformer for the Super Nintendo. This means slow, deliberate gameplay with well-animated, rotoscoped characters. You play as a scientist who ends up on a different planet trying to escape and survive, attack and shoot enemies, solve puzzles, make a friend, and die over and over again. Out of This World is better known as Another World, as it was named everywhere other than America. It was also originally a PC release and it got ported to many consoles, such as this week's SNES version. The Super Nintendo version was still a showcase piece. To see PC-like graphics on a little console was impressive for the time. The animations, the pseudo 3D environments, and cutscenes, many people wanted this just for the eye candy. It would get ported to even more consoles, including the new Sega CD and the 3DO, and eventually get a sequel called Heart of the Alien. It was developed by now legendary game developer Eric Chahi. All by himself, he did everything. The graphics, the storyboarding, the sound design. If you don't know him for his excellent work on Out of This World, you may also know him as the guy who made Heart of Darkness for the PlayStation 1. Out of This World, or Another World, also received critical acclaim upon release. People loved the original and were just as impressed by the SNES version. In IGN's top 100 games of all time, they listed Out of This World at 69th place, which is nice. As for the other games released this holiday week, here's Editor Dylan.
Also released this week was Roadrunner's Death Valley Rally on the SNES. The animation and sound design is spot on, but the whole game is just a floaty, slippery version of Sonic. Though that's not the game's fault, the SNES doesn't have blast processing, so this was probably the best it could do. Can anybody tell me how to pronounce Skulljagger Revolt of the Westikins? It's an SNES 2D action platformer starring a pirate named Storm Jackson, with an X. Okay, seriously, that umlaut is throwing me off big time. The cool thing about it is instead of a manual, it has an included, quote, amazing 80-page story and clue book. So does the book mention the name's spelling, or you basically just stab things and chew bubblegum. Is it school yogurt? And there's plenty of bubblegum. Someone please help me. The final game released this week was John Madden Football '93. They might want to workshop that title in the future. It's a bit wordy. Normally I'd say it's a generic sports game and move on, but Madden really invokes the spirit of Thanksgiving. If you don't know what Thanksgiving is, it's an American holiday where you're stuck listening to a relative you haven't seen since last Christmas go on about player stats and percentages on a football team you have no investment in when all you want to do is play the Sega Master System in the attic and eat pumpkin pie. Madden 93 is the 4th game in the Madden series. But even though it came out on the SNES, everyone knows when it comes to sports games, the Genesis does what Nintendo... Nobody cares, Gramps, just pass the damn gravy already. 7 games released on these 3 consoles this week in 1992. Even though Madden 93 sold a few million units less than Sonic 2, it was still incredibly successful. But a more notable fact is that it was part of an original ad campaign that every 90s kid knows by heart.
Party time! Let's do that and that, not that, and that. Give me that again. Timeout. If it's in the game, it's in the game. John Madden Football 93 for Super NES and Sega Genesis.
Everyone say it with me.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Thank you, Dylan. Here in the Collector's Corner, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 sold millions of copies, so it isn't too hard to find. It released with a suggested retail price of $54.95, and now the game alone is worth maybe $8, and a complete one is only at $15. Out of This World isn't pricey either. The game alone goes for under $15, and a complete copy nears $45. This week's biggest value gainer is Linus Spacehead's Cosmic Crusade. Being unlicensed, it has become increasingly rare. A cartridge alone is worth over $100, and if you still have the box and manual with it, it's worth $185. And that's it for today. Next week, an iconic platformer comes to the SNES, a game tie-in that you wouldn't expect, and another Neo Geo game. I'm your host, Jared, and this was Now in the 90s. Thank you so much for watching Now in the 90s. Please like the video and leave a comment down below and subscribe if you haven't already. Where did you first play Sonic the Hedgehog 2? I remember it pretty clearly. I was in a Sam's Club and they had a Sega on display and I played Sonic and it was amazing. And then I immediately went over to Santa, sat on his lap and told him I wanted a Sega Genesis for Christmas. I didn't get one.